when we talk about finding your genius, it's simply, what is that thing that wakes you up and makes you smile? What is that thing that brings you joy that you can do naturally? Like when I say this is my natural gift, like with LeBron James or Kobe Bryant. And once again, in our society, especially in America, it's easy to see what I call external genius. Person can play the piano, person can play the guitar, person can play the saxophone, person is good in athletics, person is good in, those are what I call external genius. But for individuals like us, right? Maybe you're a writer and that doesn't get exposed to later on in your life. So for individuals where most people are going to fall into this category of my genius is maybe something that they don't teach in the school system. Let's just say your genius is kindness. Like there's no degree for kindness, but that kindness may lead you into a career of being a nurse. That kindness may lead you into a career of working in a convalescent home, or that kindness may lead you to being an author, or whatever, or poetry. But it's little sprinkles of it. And so I encourage our educators and our parents that are listening to just see naturally what your kids like to do.
Welcome to the Mindset on Resilience podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Truelove, and I am excited for the guest that we have today. Me and him, we go way back. When I say way back, I mean all the way back. This man is a personal mentor of mine, the one who originally told me that you need to do this thing called speaking. He's been doing this for a very long time. And because of that, man, he's traveled all over the world. I mean, White House. I mean, you name it, he's probably been there and he's probably done it. You know why? Because he is a best-selling author. He is a two-time, not one, I said two-time Titan 100 CEO, which means he's one of the top 100 CEOs in all of Arizona. So he's doing his thing. But not only that, he is a top 30 motivational speaker in the world, okay? In the world. Out of all the speakers that be speaking, he's a top 30. He's an amazing man, amazing husband, father, and now we got to add Pop. He's a granddad. My man, none other than Dr. Will Moreland. How you doing, man?
Daniel, man, I'm so pleased to be here, man. Thank you so much for the invite. I've been looking forward to our conversation, man. I'm ready to get to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we want to start there because I know your journey and your story, and when we're talking about resilience, man, your journey is one that had to involve a lot of resilience. So, if you will, can you take us on that path, like just your journey, growing up in Compton, California, and to being where you are right now? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, as I get older, as I keep doing these interviews, I keep telling everybody the story keeps getting longer and longer. So I try to codify it and make it a lot smaller. But yeah, I'm originally from California, grew up in California at the time where they said California was the worst city in America. And I tell people, if you think about that, I mean, we have 50 states, and think about all the cities that we have in America. For them to pinpoint our little city as literally the worst city in America. And we did a good job to live up to that title. But I also tell people it was like the best of both worlds, and it was the best of times and the worst of times, right? On the inside, I was being raised by my grandmother, so she's teaching me values, she's teaching me about faith, she's teaching me about character and integrity. But then when we would go outside, it was a war zone. And being raised by my grandmother, literally being the only male in my house, when I got outside looking for male influence, I end up getting influenced by the wrong individual. So I end up on the wrong side of the street, end up getting in a lot of trouble. And one of the last times I got in trouble, I was in front of a Long Beach state judge, and Long Beach City judge. And I was just turning 18, and he said, "Listen here, Mr. Moreland, you're headed nowhere fast." And he says, "I need you to tell me why shouldn't I send you to one of my little facilities, aka jail? And I didn't have anything to say to him. And he says, well, listen here, this is what I'm going to do for you. He says, I'm going to let you go, and I want you to return to my courtroom in 2 weeks. And I want you to tell me what you're going to do with your life. Why shouldn't I send you to one of our nice little facilities? And I'll be honest with you, Daniel, when I left his courtroom, in my mind, I didn't have anything to tell this dude that day, and I didn't think I was going to have anything to tell him in 2 weeks. So in my mind, I was on a 2 week vacation because when I got back, I was getting ready to go to jail for 3 to 5 years. And as fate would have it, 2 days before I was supposed to return to court, I was walking in the mall, and a gentleman by the name of Corey Oliver walked up to me and he asked a question that transformed and changed my life. He says, "Have you ever thought about going to the military?" And up until that time, I had never thought about it. To be honest with you guys, where I come from, we laughed at that type of stuff. And then, especially in our community, we were told that Black people don't go to the military. But in that moment, I don't know if you've ever had a what we call like a Kairos moment where you like, this is the judge would probably go for this. If I tell him I'm going to the army, he would probably let me stay out of jail. And so I looked at Corey and I said, "Come on, man, let's go." And I'll never forget because he was so shocked. He was so shocked. Later on, as we would talk, he would tell me, he says, "Man, I walked up and down this mall for 2 years and nobody had ever said yes. You were the first person to say yes to me." And so, to make a long story short, I ended up joining the military. This was the first time, if you can imagine, the first time that I've ever left the state of California. It was the first time that I'd ever been on a plane. It was the first time I'd ever been out of my environment for 18 years. I had been in this environment where everybody looked like me, sound like me, danced like me, ate like me. And so now I'm getting shipped from Compton, California to Kentucky, where I did my training. And then from Kentucky, I went to Maryland. That was the first time I ever saw snow. And then the Army played a big trick on me. They sent me from Maryland to Germany. Now, if you can imagine, within a 6 month time frame, having going nowhere ever in my life, now I'm getting ready to go to a brand new country. Like, I didn't know anything. I remember telling my mom, I said, "Hey, mom, I'm getting stationed in Germany." And she was like, "Isn't that where Hitler was?" Man, baby, I don't want you going over there. That's where Hitler is, right? I mean, we didn't know nothing about Germany, but it was, as I look back now and I reflect, it was one of the best, amazing decisions I've ever made in my life. I get into the Army. And I get another mentor by the name of Sergeant Major Babs. He was very instrumental in helping me craft out my career inside the military. That's where I got involved in personal development and reading books. And I started reading books and came across books like Think and Grow Rich and Acres of Diamond, and all the Platinum 100 books in professional development. And I just fell in love with it. And I ended up my military career after 8 years and said, you know what? I want to travel the world and I want to teach people this personal development stuff, this leadership training stuff. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so I took, a gamble on myself. I bet on myself. Everybody at the time told me I was crazy. I was like 22 at the time. And it's like, why would you leave this career? Why would you leave the military? Why would you do that? You're messing up your life. But I just knew that what was in my heart, I had to go follow that because I didn't want to live with regret. And so here we are now, 25 years later since me leaving the military. And it's been quite a journey, my man.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. I want to dive into that because I know that you are the guru as it relates to personal and professional development in regards to taking your life and living in your genes. Now we ain't gonna go there yet, but we go believe we go get there. We go get there. But I want to talk to you about what kind of prompted this to happen. It was a yes. It was a yes from somebody to somebody that you didn't know with the offer that you had never considered before. Hey, you, do you want to go to the military? And in that moment, you could have said a lot of things. Um, what made you say yes? Was it just because the judge would accept it, or was that the only reason for your yes? And kind of explain a little bit in saying yes to things. Maybe because you have pressure to say yes, or maybe because you don't even know what will come from this. But even without knowing, There's great things that are on the other side of your yes.
Yeah, there's a proverb that says time and chance happen to us all. Time and chance happen to us all. And as I look at my story, I call those three gentlemen the three disruptors in my life: the judge, Corey, and Sergeant Major Babs, that interfered in my thinking. And that's what we all need. We need disruptive. We need somebody to come and disrupt when we have negative patterns going on and we have negative stories going on in our life. And when I look at saying yes to Corey, number one, it was the judge that gave me the opportunity. He didn't send me to jail that day. And everybody that's listening to us, I don't care what situation that you're in, I don't care what you're going through right now. You have to understand that before you got into that situation, before you experience any trouble, any setbacks in life, you got to understand that you came to this world with a purpose. And if you came to this world with a purpose, it doesn't matter what trouble that you're in, that purpose supersedes that trouble. And that's what I had to realize, that even though up until that point in my life, I had been a gangbanger, I had sold drugs, I had been to jail several times before, none of that xed out my purpose that God had for me. And all I needed to do was get back into alignment with his assignment for my life. And so God used these individuals to kind of nudge me, to kind of get me back to the narrow path. And so when Corey asked me that, I didn't know the full weight of what I was saying yes to. Honestly, I was just saying no to wanting to go to jail. And sometimes in life, you're going to have to say yes to some things that you don't fully understand why you're saying yes to. And it's not going to make sense to anybody else but you. And that's how you have to kind of look at these choices you make in life. People talk about having vision and people talk about having dreams. Usually, when God gives you a vision or a dream, He doesn't give it to you in committee. He doesn't wake up your mom and your dad and your sisters and your brothers and say, "Hey, I'm giving Will a dream. I'm giving Daniel a dream." If you think about, that story of Daniel, Joseph in the Bible, God gave him a dream. He didn't give it to everybody else. So when you're communicating your dream to everybody, they're not supposed to get it because God gave it to you. It's for you to go and take action on it. And once you take action, that's when they begin to see it. So saying yes, even though I didn't know at the time what I was saying yes to, I've realized in life, you're going to have to say yes to your better self. You're going to have to say yes to your better life. You're going to have to say yes to creating the life that you love. And you're going to have to ultimately say what Jesus said: not my will, thy will be done.
Man, I think well, we already here. Like, this is what it's like being around Dr. Will. But I think one of the most important things that you said is something that I agree wholeheartedly to, is that you knew what to say yes to because you had already said no to something else. The no was jail. And since you did not want that life, there had to be something that was going to create an opportunity for you to get out of that path. So the yes to the military was overwhelming, a quick yes because of what you said no to. But sometimes we don't have our no's, quickly outlined within our life. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there. I don't want that for my life. I don't want that for my family. We don't have our no's, so now we're not as quick to say yes as you did because we don't even know what we're saying no to say yes to.
As I'm thinking about that, before I got in front of the judge, I had stayed maybe about 3 days in the city jail, and I remember lying in that jail, just looking up at the ceiling, and just telling myself, man, this can't be life. It has to be more than this. And I knew, Daniel, I knew just off the principles my grandmother had gave me and things like that. I knew there was more in me. Now, because of where I grew up, you don't get exposure to a lot of things. You don't get exposure to successful people and things like that. So the struggle was, like, I knew there was more. I just didn't know how. I didn't know how to go after it. The majority of people that went after the more in my life were either you had to be an athlete, you had to be an entertainer, or you was a drug dealer. and the entertainers and the athletes weren't close to me. It was the drug dealers that were close to me, and I saw them with the nice clothes. I saw them with the nice cars, and it seemed like they were just living the best life. But as I laid there in that jail, I was like, man, this can't be this can't be it. I'm smarter than this. I just didn't know. But I believe anybody that's listening to us, if you would wholeheartedly in your heart with all sincerity, just say, God, I don't know my next steps. I don't know what you designed for me, what you've planned for me, but I know it has to be better than this situation. I know it has to be better than what I'm experiencing right now. And I'm open to whatever that is. But when you ask God that, you do have to be willing to say yes, because a yes may mean you got to move. For Abraham, it was go and I will show you, And so a lot of people, once you start asking God stuff, you got to be prepared for what he tells you and be willing to say yes. And mama may not be in that new city, daddy may not be in that new city, your friends may not be in that new city, but your purpose is there, your path is there, your prosperity is there. And that's what exactly happened for me. In that, yes, I had to leave. I had to leave everything that I was comfortable with. I had to leave everything that I was used to. I had to leave the arena of comfortability so I could go to extraordinary.
Mm, that's good. That's good. Now let's talk about that second disruptor, because obviously that first one led you on that journey to where you were in a new environment that was uncomfortable for you. But there's some great things that can happen on the other side of our comfort zone. So the second, one of the other disruptors was what did you say his name was?
Corey, the Army recruiter. Yeah.
Not the army recruiter, but when you're the one that introduced you to personal development.
Oh, so that was my third disruptor. His name was Command Sergeant Major Babs, and so let me just give you this little story, because this will help a lot of people as well. So when you start to go into these new arenas, what you got to realize is you're physically in a new place, but mentally you're in an old place. So what happened to me was, even though I was 8,000 miles away from Compton in Germany, physically, mentally, I was still in Compton, California. So when it came to interacting with people and when it came to handling situations, I was handling it like I was back on the block. And so what happened was, within the first couple of months of me being in Germany, I was getting ready to get kicked out the army. I was getting ready to get kicked out because I was fighting a lot. This is, where I come from, they ask you stuff like this. Hey, where you from? And where I come from, they're asking you what hood you're from, what gang you're from. When I was in the military, you have people that are coming from all across the states. And so what they were asking me when they would say, where you from? They were asking me, what state you from? I'm from Kentucky. I'm from Louisiana. I'm from Detroit. I'm from, where you from? In my mind, oh, okay, everybody set tripping. Everybody gang banging on me. Okay. So this is how I was approaching people, right? Where I come from, if you look at somebody too long, like, what you looking at? What you looking at? And so it's like, out of curiosity, I didn't know about curiosity. I didn't know that somebody from Texas would see somebody from California and be like, oh, he talks different. Like, people were telling me, oh, you got an accent. What are you talking about? I got an accent. I got no accent. I'm from Compton, right? And so I didn't understand all of this. So I get into this fight, and they're ready to kick me out. They're ready to kick me out the army. But before I get kicked out, before I get to Article 15, I go in front of Sergeant Major Babs. He's the command sergeant major, and he says, "Let me talk to him." He sends everybody out the room, and he says, "Moreland, I read your file." Same thing the judge says. He says, "Man, I read your file, man. If I kick you out," this is what he tells me. He says, "If I kick you out, where are you going, man? You going back to Compton? I know about Compton. What you gonna do? End up dead or in jail? Man, what are you gonna do with your life? What are you gonna do with your life?" And he asked me this powerful question. He says, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I said, Sergeant Major, I really don't know. He says, this is what I want you to do. This is what I'm going to do for you. I'm not going to kick you out. I'm going to allow you to come and work for me. You're going to be my assistant. But I want you to go home this weekend and I want you to figure out what you want to do with your life. Where do you see yourself? Now, nobody had ever asked me that because in Compton, everybody said, listen, by 18, 19, you're either going to be in jail or you're going to be dead. That was the future of a young black kid in Compton. This was the first time somebody ever asked me about thinking about my future. So I come back on that Monday. He says, what did you come up with? I said, sorry, Major, the only thing I came up with, I would like to get my education and I want to be the best soldier I can be. He says, I can help you do that. If you're serious about that, I can help you. I He connects me with a mentor. This mentor helps me get in college. I get in college. The very one of the very first courses I took, Daniel, was a public speaking course. Now I get in here, I get in this course, and I'm a natural. I'm a literally everybody else is nervous about speaking in front of the professor and said, okay, today we're going to do improv speaking. I'm going to just give you a subject, go for it, right? And this lady, her name was Miss Copeland. She comes up to me after about 3 classes and she says, Will, you have something. You have something special. You have a gift. And she hands me this book. And she hands me this book. And this book was African American Affirmations by a guy by the name of Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. And she gives me the book. And in the book, she signs, she says, the amazing thing about this book, it's 365 days of inspiration and motivation. And Daniel, I start to read this book, and as I read this book, I'm coming in contact because what Dr. Dennis Kimbrough had done was he interviewed all these successful Black people. And I was learning now about people like Bob Johnson, the founder of BET. I'm learning about Herman J. Russell, the amazing construction guy down in Atlanta. And then I learned about a guy by the name of Reginald F. Lewis, who was the first black man to buy $1 billion company. I'm fascinated, but I'm also disheartened at the same time because I'm like, why didn't I know about any of these amazing people? Why haven't I been exposed? I didn't read about any of these people in my 19 years of living. I had never heard of these people. But what I did see was people who looked like me, came from situations like me, but they were using their brain. They weren't dribbling the ball. They weren't hitting a ball. They weren't running with a ball. They were literally using their brain to create wealth. And I was like, that's what I could do. That like I, my aha moment. I'm like, when I saw Reginald F. Lewis, I was like, I can do that. I can do. He had on a suit. He had on a tie. I just fell in love with how he looked. And she says you can read this book over and over. And Miss Copeland, when she gave me that book, I hadn't read a book, after high school or whatever. I hadn't read a book, but once I got into that book led me to other books. That's how I got into Dr. Kimbrough wrote another book called Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. And so then I read that book, and then Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice got me into Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and then all the personal development books out there. And I just got overwhelmed. And then I got introduced to people like Zig Ziglar and Jim Rome and Les Brown, and I didn't know this world existed of personal development, but I started to see how my thinking was changing. I'm coming from Cali. I'm coming from that Tupac attitude, me against the world, right? But now I'm reading Acres of Diamond. I'm reading The Magic of Thinking Big by Schwartz, and now you're telling me that my mind can change my life, that if I just thought differently, I could live differently. And I was just so naive enough to believe it. I was like, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. I was just so naive enough. They said, man, if you read every single day, your life will be uh, far better. So I just started reading. And then I woke up one day and 7 to 8 years into it, I had read like 700 books. And so getting all of this information, the mind is just, this is why I love the name of your show, Mindset, Resilience. The mind is just such a beautiful tool that God has given us that is able to expand and house all of this new information. And so it's like having a reboot for your computer. Sometimes when your computer is running too slow or whatever, you got to get a reboot and put a new operating system in it. And so literally what happened for me through reading, I was able to put a new operating system in my mind. And so I saw the world totally different. Instead of seeing the world, me against the world, I saw the world collaborating for me to have a wonderful life. I truly believe like all the elements were here for me to enjoy life. And once I got on that track, man, everything started changing.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing because you can just tell that this isn't theory. This is a lived experience. And one of the things that I love about that first class that you took on public speaking is something that I believe that should happen, because there are a lot of educators and administrators that listen to our podcasts, and so I think one of the most amazing things is that you took a public speaking course and you said you are a natural. Now I have a question to ask you. Were you were you a class clown?
So here we go, right? And this kind of gets us into my philosophy, right? About everybody has a genius. Back when I started going back over my life, I saw hints of me being, my mom, my grandmother would take me to church. And so I would always come home and I would mimic the pastor. I would be in the backyard, mimic, hooping and hollering, mimicking. And then all throughout my life, I would begin to see that this is what I was supposed to be doing. I would see hints of this all throughout my life. The problem was when I was a kid, what did they say? Will talks too much. He's a disruptor. He's disrupted in class, right? And here's the thing about this: if I would have played basketball, if I would have played football, if I would have played the saxophone, if I would have played the piano, they would have called me a prodigy, right? They would have said, "Man, I would have been a little Tiger Woods," right? But because no one knew about this speaking thing. No one knew, right? Limitedly, you know, they would tell me, "Oh, you're gonna be a preacher one day," because that's what that. Okay, he liked to talk a lot. It was either that or a lawyer, right? Because of their limited, because of my people's limited exposure, they didn't know this vastness of this speaking arena. They didn't know that just like a person can say they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a judge, or a police officer, you could say you want to be a public speaker. And so all throughout, I have some of them here. All throughout my report cards, I would see Will is a delight to have in class. He just talks a little bit too much. If we can get that curtailed, he'll be all right. But if I would have had in my school, if we would have had a debate team, if we would have had a public speaking course, here's a Will honing in on his genius at maybe 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, just like a basketball player, just like Tiger Woods, his dad taking him out there at 4 years old. By the time he's 14, he's one of the best youth golfers in the world. That could have happened. And the education, you said a lot of teachers and administrators listen to your podcast. The education system that we have, it pushes us into certain careers, right? And when we're in school, if math, science, biology, if you're not good at that, that's what they grade everybody on. But what if you're a speaker? What if your passion and your gift is to do hair? Well, you have to wait till you get all the way out of high school for you to be able to do that, because it's nothing inside our current school system that allows us to express these different gifts. I mean, there's millions of different types of genius in the world, but our school system just focuses on those seven core. I'm going to teach you history, and so if you're not a history buff, if you're not a science buff, if you're not a mathematical, if you're not into STEM, you're probably called the disruptive kid. Because for me, I wasn't disrupt, I was just bored, because none of that was my passion. I was just bored. None of that was my passion. When I got into college and I got into my passion, I was a straight A student. I graduated summa cum laude. I was one of the top students because I was now studying my passion. So any teachers out there, administrators, I'm just give a guy like me a chance. If you see a student like Will, he may not just be disruptive. He just may have found a different passion. And if you can talk to him or her about that and kind of help them explore, well, listen, here in class, we're going to do math, but if you do your work in math, I'll let you color. I'll let you, draw. I'll let you whatever. Who was that? Was it Eddie Murphy? I think it was Eddie Murphy and even Kevin Hart. Their teachers made a deal with them, like, okay, if you do your work, the last 5 minutes of class, I'll let you do your little jokes. I'll let you do your little thing. If you last 5 minutes of class, I'll let you do your gaming or whatever they are doing, but let them have that outlet, and you may see a different response in them.
I love it. I love it. And that's where I was going with that, is that find a way to incorporate that. I was an individual that was a class clown as well. Talk too much. And I didn't talk too much. I just didn't recognize the power of my voice. I didn't recognize that I had to control it, control my gift in a way. And my gift isn't right for every setting. There's some settings to where I need to speak, and there's some settings to where I don't. And we need to help people find out not only that they are gifted, but the way in which they can utilize that gift in different rooms and to the best of their ability. And so I found my genius. Obviously, you found your genius. So talk to us about what does that mean to, like you say that there may be millions of different types of genius. What does it mean to live to live a genius life?
Yeah, so when I think about living a genius life, genius for me stands for a acronym, and it stands for getting engaged in unique significance, right? Getting engaged in unique significance, and it's finding that sweet spot in your life. And as I said, for me, what I've noticed, if you just go throughout your lifetime, you've probably got whiffs of what your genius is. So once again, just to simplify, let's say Simone Biles, right? The great gymnast, the greatest gymnast to ever live. Her parents noticed that, man, this girl is always jumping off the couch. She's always jumping off the bed. And they had the wisdom to say, let's go put this girl in a gymnastics class, versus where 99% of parents would have been like, get off that couch. If you jump on that bed one more time, I'm going to tear your butt up, right? But they had the wisdom to understand. And so I would say for parents and teachers to start looking at that, to help support young people in finding their genius, because you know there's a in the book Ingenious Potential, I write about a gentleman who in Hollywood is known as a genius. He's the one that does all the special makeup. So when you see Miss Doubtfire, when you see Martin in his Big Mama outfit, this guy is the guy who does all of that. Now, you're not going to see that in a regular classroom. You're not going to see that genius in a regular classroom. But I'm sure as he was growing up, he had some artistic pools. He had some, right? And that's why exposure is so important and so vital, because if you only offer me, I call it Neapolitan, right? If you only offer me chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla, that's what I got to pick from. But then I found out, wait a minute, it's 31 flavors. Why am I and even more than that, just for the example, but for most people it's 31 flavors. And then when you think about our children at 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, asking them this question: what do you want to be when you grow up? How crazy is that, to ask a 5 year old, 6 year old, 7 year old, 8 year old, what do you want to be when you grow up? So now what are they going to do? From the Neapolitan of examples, I know teachers, I know police officers, I know lawyers and doctors and engineers. Beyond that, what have they been exposed to pick from? And so I work with millions of adults, that hate what they do because at 8 years old, somebody said, what do you want to be? Nurse. Okay, you're going to be mommy's little nurse. You're going to be daddy's little nurse. You're going to be daddy's doctor, right? And so they get stuck in these things that are really their genius. So when we talk about finding your genius, it's simply, what is that thing that wakes you up and makes you smile? What is that thing that brings you joy that you can do naturally? Like when I say this is my natural gift, like with LeBron James or Kobe Bryant. And once again, in our society, especially in America, it's easy to see what I call external genius. Person can play the piano, person can play the guitar, person can play the saxophone, person is good in athletics, person is good in, those are what I call external genius. But for individuals like us, right? Maybe you're a writer and that doesn't get exposed to later on in your life. So for individuals where most people are going to fall into this category of my genius is maybe something that they don't teach in the school system. Let's just say your genius is kindness. Like there's no degree for kindness. but that kindness may lead you into a career of being a nurse. That kindness may lead you into a career of working in a convalescent home, or that kindness may lead you to being an author, or whatever, or poetry. But it's little sprinkles of it. And so I encourage our educators and our parents that are listening to just see naturally what your kids are like to do. Like for my kids, we never pressured them to go one way or the other. We didn't pressure them to go, to college or anything like that. We just pressured them to find what makes you happy.
So I love the fact that you're kind of sprinkling a lot of things that you teach about, a lot of things that you kind of train about as it relates to you becoming two-time Titan 100 CEO. So tell me a little bit about your company, what it is that you do, and how you infuse like this personal development, because there is an educator or administrator out there that is looking to grow. Maybe they're looking to grow personally, or maybe that growth is professional. They maybe apply for an assistant principal job, or they apply for a job to work in the central office, and maybe that the opportunity wasn't a yes in this particular moment. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you do, and what can you give us as it relates to personal growth and development.
Yeah, so I have a company, Moreland Training and Associates, and what we focus on is leadership and personal development. And we go into schools and we go into organizations and we work with individuals. And first part of it is we get them to identify in those situations who they are and what their goals are. So I always, when I go into organizations or when I go into a school, you understand that everybody has a goal and everybody has a vision. So, for your particular audience, you have the parent. The parent has a vision of what they want for their kid. The kid has a vision. The teacher has a vision, and also the administration, right? The school board. They all have a vision. So we got to figure out how we can unify these visions, right? And the kids are at the core of it, right? The kids are at the core of it. They're our product per se. They're our focus. But if you're a teacher, an administrator, what I always ask people is the same thing. Sergeant Major Babs asked me, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Do you see yourself staying a teacher?" Or do you see yourself wanting to go into administration? Do you see yourself wanting to be a principal? Do you see yourself wanting to be a superintendent? We want to help them with their vision. Where do you see yourself? So that's a question that I would ask everybody. And so let's say, you know what? I'm only going to teach for 5 more years. I'm only going to teach for 10 more years. So then you need to start thinking about, okay, what's my exit strategy going to be? And then what do I need to start doing today that's going to prepare me to be able to do that when it's time to do that? So we really go in and we help people identify that. And we help the leaders identify, like, if you're a superintendent, a principal, understanding that. We have this concept called leading with civility, and leading with civility helps us to look at each and every individual as a human beyond just their title. So she's more than just Miss Sarah, the math teacher. He's more than Mr. Henry, the biology teacher. They may have some hopes, dreams that go beyond this. And you should do everything as a leader to help them fulfill that. And so don't get upset if a teacher doesn't say they don't want to teach for 30 years. This may just be a stepping stone. But I tell you, the time that they're going to be with them, if they see that you're supportive, if they see that you're encouraging, they're going to be a far more better teacher than a bitter teacher that's just holding on till they find something better, right? And so Jim Collins helped us out in that, in his book Good to Great, about having all the right people in the right position, having all the right people on the bus and having them in the right position, and helping us understand that beyond this role, she's not only Sarah, the math teacher, but she's maybe a mom, or maybe she's an aunt, maybe she's a sister, she's obviously a daughter. Maybe she likes doing karaoke on Thursday. Maybe going back to the genius, maybe she has a genius of event planning. and how many events are planned at the school. So asking her to plan the events may make her feel more fulfilled at school. Like, oh, not only do I get to teach, but I get to perfect my genius in event planning. Maybe, the science teacher, he plays in a band, right? He plays in the band on the weekend. Asking him to come in and do an assembly and allowing the students to see him in a totally different light will change the atmosphere. So we go in and we help them think through things like this, how to create what we call in the corporate world, we call it cultures of civility. In the school world, we call it campuses of civility.
What I hear you, but under the essence of what I hear you saying is that understanding and empathy. Like you help people understand other people better. You help people create environments that allow them to bring their full self to there. And I think um, when less people have to wear a mask, when people have to be a fraction of who it is that they are, and they can be themselves. That's who they naturally are. Obviously more people will flourish in an environment like that. And you help change the culture and climate of schools and organizations, one to where they will thrive. And I mean, everybody needs that. I was having a conversation yesterday with a mental health service coordinator, and one of the things she was saying is that, man, the thing that keeps me up at night is that talking about our kids don't understand each other. They're apathetic. They don't care about anything, and there's anger and aggression. Having someone like you that can help them see someone else as a person, see their humanity, but also see their own. Uh, that's one way to what take down an aggression, because I'm not angry at you because I know who you are. So I love the fact that you bring that to so many different environments. And so, man, you are not only just an amazing individual, obviously well traveled, very bright, well read, so many books, but that also led to you writing a whole lot of books. And so we're going to land this plane with this. And tell me a little bit about you. 52? Are we at 52 or are we more? Or 55? How many books have you written?
Something around there, man. It's 50 plus, and yeah, just grateful, man. Grateful to be able to share.
Got you. So after writing 50 plus books, obviously I would imagine that you probably have some words of wisdom and inspiration. Obviously, as everybody has heard so far, out of all the books that you've written, I want you to share from something that you've written. I'm going to be specific with you. We have this last segment called Better Days Ahead. And what Better Days Ahead is about, those giving our listeners, maybe they're going through some challenging times, or maybe just want to provide some inspiration, some insight, something that keeps them going, just to help them realize that there are better days ahead versus the ones that they are experiencing right now. What do you have for us?
In the book Genius Potential, I talk about that every situation is a temporary situation, and you can't turn it into a prison. And that's what happens to a lot of us. We get into a situation and we think that it's a permanent situation, but every situation is a temporary situation. And you got to believe that. You got to believe that there's a brighter day on the other side. But if you choose to stay stuck, you'll never see that brighter day. It doesn't rain forever. The sun is going to come out. And so if you're listening to us today, I know it may seem painful right now. I know it may seem gloomy right now, but it starts with you, your mindset of knowing that this is only temporary. And this is why having a vision is so important. In my darkest days, what reminded me that this was temporary, because this is not the vision I saw. This is not where my life was going to end. This is not the vision. And so if this is not the vision, then I know the story is not over. And so this is what I tell everybody. Even when I was homeless, I was never hopeless, because I knew it was only a temporary situation.
Mm, my goodness. That's why vision is so important. Oh my goodness. And you brought that thing full circle. That's why he's Dr. Will Morton. That is why he's Dr. Will. And so for everybody out there, we leave you all from this segment with the wisdom that we just received. Have that vision for your life. And if You are living in a season right now to where that vision isn't fulfilled, to where the current experiences that you're having right now, it's not what you saw. Then guess what? Keep waking up, keep fighting, keep working, keep doing everything you have to do until you see that vision fulfilled. Because right now, the season that you're going through is temporary. Keep fighting. Everything is going to work out. Thank you so much, Dr. Will. This has been absolutely amazing. Man, you are a breath of fresh air. I know I'm motivated, and I appreciate you for that. Until next time.